Steve Settle. I run the CFO Centre in Singapore. CFO Centre is a network of 480 CFOs, and you can't hear me at the back. 480 CFOs around the world in 62 different offices that work for part-time for growing businesses. Enough of the sales pitch though. Tonight is not about finance, tonight is about revenue. As an old CEO of mine once told me, revenue forgives all sins. So tonight we have two stars in that field. We have Mr. Chris Reed and Fraser Morrison. Chris specialising in lead generation and Fraser specialising how to convert those leads. So hopefully it's going to be of interest to you guys. Some house rules. Chris is going to kick off for 30 minutes. Fraser's going to follow for 30 minutes, and then we'll have questions. So if you can hang on to your questions, and then after that we'll move out over there and have some more drinks. So I hope that works. If the phone goes off, the door's over there. If you want to talk, the door's over there. We're in here to hear these guys, okay?
The other house rule is you have to put your phone on, take pictures and share it on LinkedIn. That's a must.
Right, I've got an intro for Chris, but it's so long.
Don't read my LinkedIn profile, please. I'll be here forever.
Guru of LinkedIn does this,
That's fine, that's fine.
Best-selling back marketing. I'm sure you all know about Chris. He knows what he's talking about. He's a very, very entertaining presenter. So can I get out the way and let you carry on? Thank you.
Let me sweat the front.
Yes. I'll see if I can get the aircon on earlier.
You will have a rewarding experience. Do ask questions along the way, and like I say, do take pictures of me and Fraser and the lovely Steve and share these on LinkedIn. Tag us, hashtag us, social selling, SMEs, whatever you want to do to get traction on your LinkedIn. So I'm going to talk about social selling. But what is social selling? Well, basically it's this. It's basically socializing. It's not a hard sell. It's not a cold call sell. It's basically enabling you to build a relationship with someone who gives you permission to actually then sell to them. And you do that by sharing things like insights and content and personal branding enhancement and giving away content, for example. So we're going to talk a bit about that tonight, about how you actually do that. But it is very much centered around LinkedIn. For B2B, it's very much LinkedIn. For high-end B2C, like Steve's business, for example, on the SJP side of things, it's very much LinkedIn too. So LinkedIn's very, very good in terms of the data and so forth for that kind of side of things. And LinkedIn's very much the only platform you can do that on, because Facebook doesn't have the data, Twitter doesn't have the data, WeChat doesn't have the data. So they can give you lots of adverts and all the rest of it and tell you you're hitting people, but you know, as well as anybody does know, that they're fake profiles, they're bots, they don't exist, they were created by some Russian mafia team or some Ukrainian team or whatever. So you don't even know you're hitting the right people. Whereas on LinkedIn you do. And the reason why you haven't heard about LinkedIn having any fake news is because it doesn't have fake news. And they wouldn't stand for it, the users wouldn't stand for it, whereas Facebook people are so stupid, they stand for that kind of thing. So you can tell I'm not on Facebook, so I'm not a believer in Facebook at all. I believe that LinkedIn, nationally, globally, is the only one, because it's the only one available in China. So if you want to hit China, you've got to use LinkedIn. The VPNs don't even work in China anymore. So you want to hit China, you want to hit every single country in the world, LinkedIn's the only one. So it is very much B2B buying in the age of social media. How do you do it? These days, it's very much through Google. People search on Google, they look for different things on Google, and then normally the first thing that comes up is your LinkedIn profile, if they're looking for someone like yourself, and you optimized your profile. So you basically research, who has recommendations. We happen to have 800 LinkedIn recommendations. So it's not just us saying we're actually very good at what we do, it's actually 800 other people doing the same thing. It's the same way you might pick a restaurant through something like TripAdvisor. You say, how many people actually, how many good, how many bad. You ask your friends, what's a good restaurant, what's a bar, what's a good place to do this. You're looking for that affirmation from someone else to give you that kind of almost permission to kind of do something, because you're nervous, should I spend money here? What do you think about them? Do I go to this restaurant? If I take them, will they be impressed? So you need that confirmation that actually that person knows what they're talking about. So that's why we go quite heavy on the recommendations. We do it for lots of our clients too. And then you look for people, have they won awards? Because if awards basically are given out by other people, like these ones given out by LinkedIn for being a LinkedIn Power Profile, for example. And normally people just, MNCs like PS Gupta and people like that, get them automatically just because they happen to be the DBS CEO. They automatically get lots of views. SMEs have to fight a lot harder. And then you have to look at things like, if you have books out, for example. So we have 3 different books. You have the third one here, The Social Selling Mastery for Entrepreneurs, which was the official book of Social Selling 2018, which we had at Microsoft this year. We sold out to 400 people. It's going to come back in 2019. Look out for a massive, massive venue that's going to be for that one. I'll give you a clue. It's got a boat on the top of it. Some of you get that, some of you maybe don't. But you'll find out on my LinkedIn. That's going to be an absolutely enormous event. We're going to literally double the capacity because social selling, people were so enthused by the event we had at Microsoft. They want to learn about how to do social selling because cold calling is dead. This is what happens when I get called all the time. No caller ID or a number that has +1 on or +91 on, and automatically you know it's spam. And these days on my Android phone, for example, my Android phone says potential spam, possible spam, this is spam. So it's actually telling me before I even answer it. So I stopped answering phones like about 2 years ago. So it's just pointless. People don't answer phones. Whereas on LinkedIn, I answer, or my team answer, every single message. Because I look at who we both know, I look at your personal branding, I look at your profile, look at your recommendations, and even if you're trying to hit me, like even if you try to sell to me, I'll still reply to you. I had a very amusing one this afternoon actually, you will never believe this. Somebody tried to sell me LinkedIn lead generation. And I wrote to him, I went, really, have you looked at my profile? He's selling social selling to somebody who does social selling. And it's like, I just think he was like, obviously had not locked it, or maybe he'd got a bot to actually do it, but that's the problem. Basically, at least I'll reply to him actually, because he took the trouble to actually write to me, so I'll write to him back and I can see who he is. Whereas I won't do that on a call. I'll completely ignore every single call, so I apologize if you've ever called me, because I won't pick up unless you happen to be in my address book, because cold calling is dead. People at the ultimate day buy people, things like this, build relationships. Socializing with other people, getting to know other people, trusting other people is absolutely key. You know, look at someone like Richard Branson's the master of this on LinkedIn, 18 million followers on LinkedIn, and people follow him, not Virgin Atlantic. Look at that, 120,000 people. Richard Branson has 18 million followers. So he markets the Virgin brand through Richard Branson's profile, not through this here. Is this your dodgy mouse there, Fraser?
The touch screen TV, you touched it.
Oh, I touched it. Oh yes. Fraser wanted to do the whole Minority Report thing where he went like that. So apparently that works as well. No, it doesn't. Oh, it does. Okay, it does. Oh no, it's gone the other way. Oh, it's fine. So, see, that's why you don't do that. That's why you don't do that. So people buy people. People buy people like Dr. Tim, which many of you will know, for example. We helped him enhance his personal branding. So we took his book out there, we did his videos, you know, infographics. Dr. Tim's amazing. If you want to help on your posture, to help you sit down and have energy at work, Dr. Tim's the man to do it. He's absolutely fantastic. But it's all about personal branding. It's all about you. Whether you like it or not, you have a brand. And you have brand values. And it's what other people are saying about you, which is absolutely, that is your brand. You're not in control of your brand. You think you are, but you're not. So you need to decide kind of like how you cultivate that brand, how you elevate that brand, what elements you want people to know about, and then try your best to actually enhance those. And if I show you this, you get an automatic brand impression. The Joker has a personal brand. He has values of disruption and chaos and technology. You know, he has certain brand values, but so does he. You know, love him or hate him, Lewis Hamilton has, you know, brand values. So every single, you think about him, you think about the values he has, for example, about being a champion, about being fast, about being a risk taker, about being a playboy and so forth. So you know about his brand values. You all have brand values too. You think about yourself and ask your friends, ask other people, what values do you have as a personal brand? Because you all have one. You have to brand yourself. So what is your brand? You know, Nike, just do it. That's their brand strapline. Apple has Think Different. Breaking Bad, the difference between Walter White and the drug lord Heisenberg was his personal brand. One was feared and caused chaos, one wasn't. One was a failed entrepreneur. And that's the difference between a name, the same person. The branding there was all in the essence of how Heisenberg, for Breaking Bad, actually took on the drug lords and actually built an empire. And that's what personal branding is all about. So mine is the only CEO with a mohawk. It's all Stephen needed to say. I am the only CEO with a mohawk. I'm the only guy in Singapore with the only mohawk, because most people are frightened of having a mohawk in Singapore. But it is about personal branding. I use the phrase, every single person here in the world has a metaphorical mohawk. You all have mohawks, whether you like it or not. It's just, what is your mohawk? So you have to think about, how do you stand out, for example? And LinkedIn's very much, obviously, B2B. You look at someone like Andrew Houghton, for example. He's marketing the Ritz-Carlton, so he's going big with the background picture there. And you all have background pictures. Not all of you are using it. Some of you got a picture of Singapore. Lovely, but you're not in the Singapore tourism body. So you can't use a picture of Singapore. And everyone thinks it's unique. Yes, I've got a unique picture of Singapore. It's not unique. It's like going to Sydney and everyone's got a harbour bridge. It's like, that's not unique either. And it's not about you. Unless you own the harbour bridge, which you don't, you can't use that and think it's going to reflect positive on you. It's just a picture of Sydney. Look at Dahlia here, for example. So we work with her on her branding. Big branding there in terms of euphoric coaching, dare to be different. It's all about making sure that as soon as you come to her profile, you get a very positive impression of who she is and her brand values. You know what she can actually offer you. Because LinkedIn is very much B2C as well. So if I show you this young man here, you will see that. Mr. Settle, very much about the CFO Centre and SJP. So we changed the background picture at different times. We used a different strapline, different keywords, different content to elevate the personal branding, even from a B2C perspective. You know, like Ivan here, for example, he's also B2C and B2B at the same time, because Ivan runs a fantastic restaurant. You haven't tried it, the Nori restaurant up the road, absolutely amazing, does incredible stuff. But that is also B2C, because he's targeting people like you. He's targeting people who are sophisticated tastes about food, want to actually wine and dine guests for business, for example, and he wants in a fantastic environment. So where better place to do that than LinkedIn? You can't do that on Facebook, you can't do that on Instagram. It's got too many people who basically will never ever be able to afford a dinner at Nuri. And it's worth paying for. Wouldn't go there every week, but it's worth paying for because of the fact that he gives you so much personal attention. He used to work with Heston Blumenthal, so he knows what he's talking about. It's a fantastic brand and a fantastic restaurant. So it's all about content marketing. And we have a rule, or rather LinkedIn have a rule, just like Twitter does and Facebook does and Instagram does, for example. All social media have this rule, 411. And 411 is you have one hard sell post. If I talked about black marketing, that's one hard sell post. But you've got to have one soft sell post. So if I talk about leadership or innovation, or if I talk about content marketing or personal branding, that's not directly selling my service, but it's a social soft sell. But then you have to gain permission to do this by giving 4 unrelated posts. So you have to give value before you ask someone that you permission to actually sell to them. Because if all you do is do hard posts, people will unfollow you. They'll hide your feed, remove your connection. And if they unfollow you or hide your post, you don't even know about it because they're still connected to you. So you think about that and you think, I've got all these followers, but then if half of them haven't actually seen your content, you missed an opportunity. So you have to share things about Singapore, about innovation, about technology, about events. Now, I've done a couple of book reviews recently, just give value back to this is a great book you should read, without actually selling the business at all. So think about how you can actually give value, and then you have permission to actually hit the people with a hard sell post. So it's a mixture of the two. And then curated content's a great way of doing it. So if you do curated content, make sure that you know that people have read it, for example, and put quotes in around. So you know, for example, you're picking out different aspects of it and sharing it. And your content's absolutely key, you know. So for example, I was on Money FM a few weeks ago. Now nobody here would actually listen to Money FM because nobody listens to Money FM. But it's good to actually be on Money FM because you get the kudos of saying I was on Money FM. People go, that's good, nice. I was busy at the time. It was lunchtime. I was very busy. And what you do is you put a pre-promotion on LinkedIn, you record it, and then you say, you get a nice picture of you and Howie, for example, and say, yes, I was on the radio, and here's the recording. And by putting that on LinkedIn, you're able to get to thousands, if not millions of people, which are many more millions of people who had listened to today, Money FM. And that's the key. Use LinkedIn as an amplification platform. If you're doing podcast interviews or YouTube interviews like I did with Doyle here, for example, or with Jane here, for example, a podcast interview, that's fantastic and you're getting into her channel, but then put it on LinkedIn so that everybody else can benefit too. Use it as an amplification platform of your personal branding outside of LinkedIn and put them into LinkedIn. You know, we do video marketing conference, for example, so we did a before, and then a during, and then an after. So you're literally picking up momentum and letting people know how it actually works. And people love to see photographs on LinkedIn. They love to see photographs in a business context on LinkedIn. It is ultimately still a social network, just in a business context. So just think about that in terms of your sharing. So even when you go to an event, you might want to target, you know, talk about the event, what the event meant, what you learned from the event, for example. Like this, a weird event here was a kind of Finnish event with a Finnish ambassador, and you had to build Lego with other people you didn't know to learn about business decisions. But it's quite interesting and quite cool. So we shared that and got lots of interesting people saying, wow, that's interesting. And then you basically, if you want to thank people, so we had an intern Audrey here, who left us recently, and she was fantastic. So we did a post on LinkedIn, you know, 5,000 people thanked, brilliant, you know, and then let other people know we take on interns and what a rewarding experience it was. And we've got other people coming to us going, oh, can I be your intern for the new year? So it worked in terms of employer branding. And then when I was at the art show, for example, last week with Steve, actually, I took some pictures of various artists, put it on LinkedIn. People like that kind of thing because it's still business, but it's also showing other aspects of your own personal brand. Nothing to do with my actual business itself. You ultimately have to be yourself. LinkedIn's very much authenticity. There's no point trying to be somebody else. You have to be yourself. Yeah, this is my favorite picture because it tells a very nice story. So I was at the Ritz-Carlton in Hong Kong, and I arrived, and my room wasn't ready, and I didn't have time to actually arrange another room, for example. And I said, where am I going to meet people? You know, the lounge was kind of empty. How do you do it? Where am I going to meet people? And they said, why don't you have the boardroom? I said, the boardroom, but don't you charge for that? I said, no, because your room's not ready, we'll give you the boardroom for free. So all week, basically, they gave me the boardroom for free. And I met people at the boardroom who were very impressed that I could afford this Ritz-Carlton boardroom. Obviously, I couldn't. They worried about my fees. So they said, oh, you're at the Ritz-Carlton boardroom. But the point is that this post, for example, and me thanking the Ritz-Carlton for their amazing customer service, actually got 54,000 views. More importantly, it got this guy. And this guy owns the Ritz-Carlton in Hong Kong. Oh, shit, shouldn't do that. Yeah, stop tapping the thing, Chris, yes. So he owns the Ritz-Carlton in Hong Kong. And then he saw it and he thought, that's amazing. You got 50,000 views of that post just by doing a photograph? He said, I want a piece of that. So he's now a client. But then the Ritz-Carlton became a client, and the Ritz-Carlton in Shanghai became a client, the W Hotel became a client. So anyway, so they became a client all because of one picture. That picture won me. That looks like I'm on some kind of game show, doesn't it? That's just like, you know, and come on down. Oh my God. It's alive. Is this supposed to have an echo? What is this, like a Guns N' Roses rock show? Welcome to the stadium. Blimey, I think we could do without that. You didn't think it was going to be so interactive, did you? Neither did I. So that just shows you the power of a picture. Have a picture on LinkedIn. Even things like this. I love going to Terminal 3. It's my favourite place in the world. Because I come back from a flight, no matter how far away it is, and I'm tired and all the rest of it, and I get off and I see there's not a single person there. And we've all experienced that. So every time it happens, I kind of like, oh, stop doing that. Every time it happens, every now and again, I think I just have to take a picture. The trouble is, it happens every time I fly. So I can't do it every single week. Left another advert for Changi Airport. Yes, another advert for Changi Airport. But it's brilliant because even something like that gets so many people like you who've experienced the same thing. And they get many people in London and America and China go, wow, that's what an airport should actually look like. No queues on Hong Kong's airport, which drives me mad. Or when we source, for example, a logo, we put all the logos out there for Mohawk Marketing, for example, which is one of our brands. I still think we should go on for that one. It's the native the only people who can call themselves, who can actually have a go at other people in America for not being immigrants. Anyway, so it's all about using it as a sourcing platform and using it to interact with people. So you have to share your passions in a business context as well. Make sure that people know you're human. Personalize it. That's what social selling is all about. It's actually showing the other side in a business context. I'm not talking about family and friends and issues like that, and dead, the dying and the babies and that kind of thing. When you see that on there, unless you are in the business of the dead, the dying and babies, don't do posts about dead and dying and babies, because it doesn't work on LinkedIn. So I went to the Guns N' Roses show last week in Hong Kong, for example. So I put it up there about brand loyalty, because my first show was literally 30 years ago. I first saw them, and then 30 years later, they're still rocking and doing a 3-hour set, which I thought was quite amazing. And I'm traveling to Hong Kong to see them because it's part of my passion. So I even shared, for example, a video of it as well, because LinkedIn's all about videos now. Video. And this was like an 8-minute video of like Axl Rose doing The Godfather into Sweet Child of Mine. And people loved it because they're, wow, it's fantastic. And you're showing it a craftsman at work. So that's why I'm justifying it. Anyway, it's a craftsman at work, definitely, because it's quite amazing. And then I did this one, which is still going viral at the moment, for example, because it was Freddie Mercury's, the anniversary of his death last week. And I used to work at Hammersmith Odeon in London when he died, when I was like, best job I've ever had in my life. During the day, I had to market rock concerts. At night time, I had to meet rock stars. It was like, that's just the best job ever. Wish I could still be doing that. But I did this post, on the flyover at Hammersmith, which is seen by millions and millions and millions of people. And normally you're putting the next concert up there, but I changed it on that day, put Freddie Mercury, We Will Miss You. So I put that up there and sharing that about, talking about my first job and so forth, But because it had a good story, people loved it, and people are still sharing it and liking it now. So it's telling a story. You've all got something in you like this as well. It doesn't have to be Shakespeare, it doesn't have to be rocket science, it just has to be something interesting where people can attach to and empathize with as well. And you should tag people. So everyone probably knows Simone Henk. She does these amazing videos where she just basically dances to her songs. Even though she's a radio star, she actually makes herself a TV star on LinkedIn. So she came into our office and entertained my staff. And by posting and sharing her and tagging her, managed to get, it gets double the views it would normally get. I have to say, some of the quality of her followers differ from the quality of my followers. Very different kind of followers, even on LinkedIn. It's like, really? Okay. And then you tag many people as well. So the master of doing this is Andrew Pickup, where you might have seen this. Basically, every single time he posts something, he puts about 100 people from Microsoft in the tag, to make sure that, basically justifying his job as, yes, I am very hard at work here, promoting it, and to let you all know that I'm going to tag you all every single time I do it. So every single time I do it. He does the different 2411. He does 11111111111111. Because all he does is basically Microsoft posts, which is fine. He's in charge of corporate communications at Microsoft. And if you did work for that, you might want to do that as well. But to me, you do other things. I actually hijacked this post by showing I'm using the Surface and then tagging him back. So that's the other thing. If people do that and tag you, you basically make sure you go back in there and actually justify why what you're doing is interesting too. And I did this last week. I did the Primetime Professional Women's Association event last week, for example, which went on for 3.5 hours, would you believe? This talk went on for 3.5 hours last week because they asked so many questions. They basically had to tell me that the place was closing at 11 o'clock and we had to all leave because the women there were still asking these amazing questions about LinkedIn. It's quite amazing. So I tagged lots of the people there and, did 2 photographs of what it was like, for example. And it's still going strong now on 11,000 to 20,000 views. But that's the benefit of doing it. You're letting people know and then they see how you do it. Because a lot of people don't know it's as simple as just doing a little @ sign with the names there. And it's just something simple like that where you can actually do yourself. So hashtags are really important on LinkedIn. But if you put in, for example, social, hashtag social, you do social media marketing, social selling, and something they don't have here, social security, all different kinds of things that you can do there. So you can create different hashtags for your events. And if you follow a hashtag, for example, like if I put theirs like LinkedIn or branding, for example, and you're following that and it comes up at the top, people in your network who also follow that will actually see that. It's prioritized for it. So think about what hashtags you want to own, for example, as a result of it. And you can actually do both. So when Stacey came to our event, for example, we opened up our office in Cecil Street. She tagged me, she tagged the company, and then she hashtagged. So I got an email from her, from LinkedIn, saying she'd done this. So it's great social selling. And every time you tag someone, they get a notification. So again, it's great social selling. And of course, you're mentioning them, and hopefully they will share it too, because that way you get into their feed and then your message gets out there. So think about how you do that. Think about influencers in your market you want to actually influence too. Because you get all these wonderful notifications, like you get emails, and then you get this, mentioned you in a post, mentioned you in a comment, mentioned, like to post that mentions you, and so forth. But video is now key. Video is king on LinkedIn. So if you haven't done a video, do a video. Because videos work, it gets prioritized by LinkedIn. LinkedIn's now putting up, that is #1 in terms of priority. So think about you, video. More than long posts, more than short posts, video works more than anything else. And it's really, really easy. You do it on your phone, and then you upload straight away into LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the platform itself, a native platform for video. So do videos. And I tested it about 3 months ago. So I did a video about our opening of our new office in Cecil Street, for example. And I tested on YouTube, got a massive 35 views, absolutely enormous. And I have no idea who any of those people are, because you don't have to register on YouTube. There's no data. So I have no idea who those people are. It could be 1 billion views for all I care. It doesn't matter. So I then did it on LinkedIn at the same time, got 20,000 views, and I can see every single person who commented, liked, and viewed my profile as a result of the video. And that's key. The data is on LinkedIn, so you can use the data. But you videos. Videos won't work all the time. Tell stories on LinkedIn. People can watch the video on YouTube, on LinkedIn itself, on the app or on the desktop. So think about that. Share good news. This is James here talking about some client wins, for example. Talk about what a great week it had. Do demonstrations, for example. Do things like share adverts and make a point. So Mark Ritson here, who's a very good speaker. If you ever follow Mark Ritson, he's very much like me. He's a bit of a Marmite brand. You can either love him or you hate him. But he did this post about John Lewis, his advert in the UK. And he said, actually, he didn't think he was going to like it, but he liked it. And then half the people said, no, it's a terrible advert. And the other half people said, yes, it's a fantastic advert. So that's the best way of doing it. And as you can see here, it's got 220,000 views on LinkedIn just by showing that. And Mark has only got about 5,000 connections. So it's not the amount of connections, it's the quality of your content. That's absolutely key. You could pose questions. Anthony James is very good at doing this. Anthony posts videos all the time. And he's now up to 100,000 followers, 29,000 views. Share achievements. Noemi does this one, for example. Share bad news as well. It can't all be happy news. You can share bad news as well. Share real news, share real things that happen in a business context. Share consumer videos and put them a twist on them. So Steve Blakeman, who's also up to 100,000 views, who used to be here, actually shared this one and put a business twist on it. So as long as it's in a business context, it works on LinkedIn. Share the news first. If you happen to share the news first, you get the benefits. Anthony's very good at this. He basically, this one here got 126,000 views talking about the world's first AI. Now, lots of other people shared it as well, but they were too late. They weren't first. They didn't do the video. So he gets the benefit because they did the video. The video really, really works. People like Bill Gates, obviously, he puts his views out there. So again, on video. Do reports. Apparently the best website in the world is Pornhub. So there you go. There's a report there which shows that Facebook and Google don't work, but Pornhub, you should all be advertising on Pornhub apparently, which you can't obviously get in Singapore. Education. So you have to basically view education, do interviews as well. Guy Kawasaki did this fantastic interview, for example, so put interviews up there. Do workshops. So we've done workshops before for one of Steve's fellows, SJP, for example. Do video there explaining what the workshop is. And then the LinkedIn company page, though, don't do videos on that. Because as you can see here, no likes, no comments, no shares. No one follows company pages on LinkedIn, not even the video page. So don't spend the tens of thousands they will charge you to put on LinkedIn company page and careers page. 5, okay. Company page, we finished in 5, don't we? Company page authentically though do work. Emirates, for example, showed about how you actually build a plane using a video. So there's no promotions going on there. There's no why you should follow Emirates. They're just showing you how to build a plane. It's absolutely fantastic. Qatar Airways talked about, for example, Ramadan. Brilliant. Again, talk about employer branding there. So organic beats paid for. So look at HSBC, that's paid for, and they get basically, it's got no traction, no likes, no comments, no shares. It has to be from the HSBC CEO, who funnily enough is not on LinkedIn. So he basically missed the trick. He basically just outsourced it to his marketing team. His marketing team said, oh, buy advertising. Doesn't work. Company pages don't work. The CEO has to be on LinkedIn leading the company. You have to promote yourself. Simone Heng, who I just mentioned a minute ago, does a brilliant job doing this. So she does, bearing in mind, she's a radio star. So she has no media, but she puts her phone there, dances around to her favourite song, and gets hundreds of thousands of views and lots of likes and comments. Same thing with something like, again, but without video, look at how these plummet. It's the same woman, but without the video, people don't like it. You have to mix it up as well. Sally's very good at doing this. Sally does videos, hundreds of thousands of views, and then does a short post, does a post of her looking serious, does a post about a different kind of way of doing it, and then another video, but the videos work for her. Now you're probably just thinking, no, but they're both attractive females. Surely, Chris, you have to be an attractive female on LinkedIn to do that. But I would say you don't have to be an attractive female on LinkedIn. You can do 10-minute long videos that have 10,000 views and look like me and still get away with it. Because it works. And this is literally me on my balcony talking about this fantastic book called Reputation Game. And I did this on a Sunday, which everyone says is the worst day to do it. It's not. Because if you get the content right, its content is key. I actually tagged the two people who wrote it, David Waller and Rupert Young, who are both in the UK. On a Sunday, they both replied and said, that's amazing, the best speed date summary of my book ever. Brilliant. Just by tagging them to let them know. And of course, I got into their feeds. And that's the way you do it. It's as simple as something like that. And you can do it for over an hour. Like Mark Ritson shared this. This is a lecture that he shared on LinkedIn. It's an hour and 20 minutes long. But it works because it's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic, because this guy knows what he's talking about. So even on LinkedIn, over an hour, it works. So it's all about the quality of the content. You lead, you don't follow. There's another one here, 1990, 1% of people share, 1% of people, 9% of people like, and 90% of people do nothing at all. You want to be the 1%. So a great way of doing that is, if you look at, for example, Microsoft has 6 million followers, Bill Gates has 18 million followers. Ernest Soros on Marriott, he gets huge amounts of engagement by writing authentic posts, but nobody does anything on the company page. The engagement level is very, very poor. And even lawyers, many people know Stephanie here. Stephanie's an amazing lawyer. Bearing in mind, she's a lawyer. She's a female lawyer as well. So really, really hard for her to stand out and actually make some waves. But she demonstrates her personal brand. Absolutely fantastic. She lets you know she was in the Business Times, for example, or the American Lawyer. So she's standing out in a very conservative way, where most of her clients are going to be men, and most of her clients are going to be Asian, but she's standing out in a very considered, very personal branding, very professional way, whilst getting her point and her personal brand across. Absolutely inspiring woman she is. But Sales Navigator's key, and Fraser's going to talk a bit about Sales Navigator, so I'll quickly go on to this. It's all about not what you know, but who you know. It's all about basically having first connections that lead to second connections. I've got 10,000 first connections in Singapore. They lead to 1.8 million second and third connections. And that's the key. You've got to go and know the right people who know the right people. So don't accept every single person from India because they won't know the right people. But think about the people you do want to know and make sure you connect with those people. So make sure that it works and make sure you use Point Drive, because Point Drive is a way of tracking all the data. So you put Dex on Point Drive, you share the links, and it comes up with how many people have actually seen it, who they are, and for how long. So it gives you the data. Again, LinkedIn has the data. If you send someone a website or you send someone a PDF and they open it, you don't know they've done that. You don't know who they are. Point Drive gives you the data. So it works, and you have to be authentic. So it's all about being authentic. Rico de Blanc, very, very authentic. And you have to talk about other things, not just happy things. People like it if you look as if you're vulnerable on LinkedIn as well. You're telling real stories. When Christy, for example, when she had two of her friends died, so one of her friends, obviously Anthony Bourdain, who worked with at CNN, and Kate Spade, she talked about it in a personal way and communicated that. It's absolutely fantastic. So ultimately it is about your reputation, and that lives on social media. That lives when people Google you. They're looking at your reputation. So if you have videos, for example, I did the Channel News Asia a couple of years ago with Lance Alexander, fantastic. But that's a high, but I also had lots of lows. I was fired for my first job here because I wrote a blog about taxi drivers, which many people might secretly agree with and say, that was fantastic, but I would never have written it, Chris. And I obviously know that now because I got fired from the job and I was on the front page of the Straits Times and the new paper and all the rest of it as well. So I had to spend 5 years kind of building my reputation back up again, which is why I then got on the Business Times 5 years later, almost to the day, as being an example about what to do, not what not to do, as obviously that was. And it's all about you are in control of your own reputation. That's how you can actually personalize it and beef it up. Because ultimately, it's about you. And nothing demonstrates that more. My final point, don't worry, Steve. My final point is that LinkedIn, company page on LinkedIn, only has 4 million followers. Now there are 600 million people on LinkedIn. That means less than 1% of people on LinkedIn actually follow LinkedIn on LinkedIn. Now, if you think about that, they don't have to spend any advertising to get you to follow it. Whereas people who follow Jeff Weiner, because he's got 9 million followers, because people follow people. People follow you. So it's all about you will market your company through you. And you get recommendations, you've got to get your books out there, you've got to get your personal branding out there, and you've got to test, you've got to change, you've got to iterate. And then these is what creates the leads by doing all this. And then Fraser comes along and basically closes all the deal. Thank you for listening.